As per the preset tradition of the world in the story, the protagonist is undergoing the job change ceremony on his 15th birthday, which will determine what job he is best suited for. However, the results are not revealed to the audience, and the story fast forwards to another point in time in the future. Now, in a barren wasteland, the protagonist is struggling quite a bit to catch a slime. Eventually, he gets tired of the wild goose chase and decides to switch to a more offensive attack, though he fails as the slime manages to dodge, then proceeds to wrap itself around his hand, gripping onto his blade, trapping him within it. He panics at first but quickly gets himself to calm down. While doing so, an image of a modern-day young man wearing a virtual reality headset flashes by. Wait, so is this a generic isekai or a generic fantasy story? As he reminds himself proudly that he is the only novice in the world, he regains his composure and manages to get the slime off his arm and exterminate it. While it lies defeated on the ground, a strange object sticks out of its body, which the protagonist notes is a mana stone. As he examines it, he opens up a holographic menu and looks over his personal details and attributes displayed on the screen. His name is revealed to be Jade, whose job is said to simply be novice. Reviewing the screen, his eyes finally land on the category of skill point, and once he sees that he has successfully gained one new skill point, he cheers aloud at his achievement and falls back onto the grass beneath him with a relaxed smile on his face. The story then flashbacks to a few hours prior to his current situation. Back at his family's manor, he relays the disappointing news to his father, the head of the prestigious family, that he has unfortunately failed the job change ceremony. Jade's father is predictably angered by this, and though Jade apologizes and tries to make the best out of the situation, the former wastes no time in banishing him from the family, calling him an embarrassment. Even as Jade tries to reason with him, his father simply throws a pouch of money at him, stating it is a parting gift, and confirms officially that he is disowning him from the family. After accepting his expulsion from the family, Jade makes his way out and expresses that he is disappointed but not surprised, since his father has always cared a lot about their appearance in society. As he checks how much money was given in the pouch, he calculates it is approximately only enough for him to travel out of his father's territory, making him realize that his father truly does not care what happens to him as long as it does not happen in his territory. Just as he continues to wander throughout the lands, he is suddenly hit with a terribly painful headache, and a bright light starts shining in front of him. At that moment, a montage of unfamiliar scenes flashes through his mind, and though he has never seen or directly experienced such scenes before, he instinctively recognizes them as his own memories from his past life. It turns out that in his past life, he was once a young man living in modern-day Japan who was a gamer addicted to a virtual reality game called NSO, which stands for Novice is the Strongest Online. In fact, he was so addicted that it could be seen in his memories that he owned many books and merchandise related to NSO. Due to this dedication, he was infamously ranked as the #1 player in the game. As the memories reveal even more information, Jade realizes that the key to his survival in his current life is being shown to him from his past life. Back then, he was the only player in NSO who chose the job role of Novice, which is also what his given job is currently. At first, it sounded like a dumb choice on his part, as the main goal of NSO was to become the world's strongest player. However, it is revealed that since the novice job acts as the primary path of all other jobs, it means that being a novice also lets the player access endless possibilities and potential. In conclusion, being a novice meant that his past self was able to acquire any and every skill from any and every other job, making him the strongest. Once the memories stop and Jade's headache recedes, he also comes to a realization that his current fantastical homeworld looks extremely similar to what the world of NSO looked like in his past. As he puts two and two together, he decides to test out his newfound theory that he has actually reincarnated into NSO and opens the status menu for the first time, confirming the fact that he is in a video game world playing as a character after all. Determined to utilize his newfound potential as soon as possible, he quickly purchases a knife from a store in the new town and goes off to earn some skill points, as that is how he can acquire new skills as a novice. Hence, this leads up to his current situation of chasing after and eliminating a slime monster with the newly bought knife, earning himself his first skill point. Of course, he still has a lot more work to do, and after his brief moment of celebration, Jade gets back up and explores the fields for more slimes to hunt down. Around 2 hours later, he successfully manages to defeat enough slimes to acquire 10 mana stones, which is the physical equivalent of 10 skill points. Thankfully, it is just enough for him to acquire a new skill called Search, which enables him to sense the presence of other living beings around him, such as slimes. Content with this new and useful skill, he decides to head home for the day, returns to his inn room, and analyzes the mana stones up close. Firstly, he decides to try and create a type of magic tool from the stones by carving magic symbols onto them. Though the creation and crafting of magic tools is usually a special skill only for magic tool crafters, he deduces that he is still able to mimic the process as a novice and is testing this theory out. Thankfully, due to his obsessive past self who memorized every single magic symbols from NSO, he does not need to research them beforehand. Even so, he still takes a while to finish carving into all 10 of the mana stones since he is doing it all by hand, which is not the original skill used by actual magic tool crafters. Nonetheless, he works hard at it and hopes that his skill point gathering rate will change drastically for the better with the help of his homemade magic tools. The next day, Jade journeys deeper into the forest outside the city with his magic tools as well as with the help of his search skill to avoid the monsters on the way. Soon enough, he comes across his first target of the day, which is a rush boar, a monster known to be so aggressive that it is able to even throw a warrior away if they get hit by it. Of course, under normal circumstances, Jade would probably be easily defeated by such a beast, but he has confidence in his magic tools and looks forward to trying out its effects in real time. Despite being in hiding, the boar still manages to notice Jade soon, so before it can attack, he quickly uses his magic tool, and it successfully takes down the boar in an instant. The exact spell he used stored in the tool is Change, which exchanges its own location with the targeted monster's own mana stone. This instant change in mana stones applies a strong debuff onto the monster, causing it to be rendered unconscious or immobile. Although it is not deceased just yet, Jade is able to take advantage of its current state and retrieve its mana stone as well, though that clearly involves him cutting it up and effectively taking away its life. A while later, he finally retrieves the boar's mana stone, which is an important new step since it is his first new mana stone that is different from the previous 10 he collected the day before. This is because each monster has a unique mana stone personalized to them. Hence, when he exchanged the strong boar's mana stone for the weak slime one, the boar understandably is weakened to that state and is disabled. In conclusion, the magic tool of Change proves to be quite a useful and effective tool for a novice. Although, of course, it would not work for way stronger monsters such as dragons due to the natural limit in the disparity allowed. But for now, Jade is satisfied with using the tool on mid-tier monsters needed to help him grind up his power levels. As he happily makes his way to a nearby creek to refresh himself, he soon notices a gigantic nest filled with giant hornets. Using his search skill, he calculates that there are 2 outside and 6 inside, making him confident that he can make it work since he still has 9 charges of Change left. In normal circumstances, a party would need at least either a potent poison or a member who is able to use detoxification, as the hornets possess intense poison that could otherwise annihilate the entire party. Thus, with the use of his magic tool, he also manages to successfully take down all of the hornets from the nest and proceeds to harvest their mana stones as well. Once he finishes doing so and sits on the riverbank, relaxing, he reviews that he has earned a total of 500 skill points so far and decides to unlock another new skill most suitable for his current situation, and that is storage. As per the name, it lets Jade use storage magic and grants him the ability to store his things in a distorted space as well as retrieve them whenever he needs them. However, its beginning stages do have a small limit, and though he would like to store the boar carcass in it as well, he calculates that he's unable to unless he upgrades the storage limit. In the end, he decides to use his remaining points to upgrade his storage limit up to 3 times the original size and finally stores the boar carcass. With that, he decides to return to town for the time being and liquidate his assets by trading them in and earning some money in return. He ends up at the town's Adventurers Guild, and once he comes across a faculty member there, he immediately pulls the boar carcass out from his storage and asks if they can buy it from him. To his confusion, the faculty member reacts with shock as she asks how he pulled it out of thin air in her eyes. At this, he realizes that storage magic is a unique skill of the novice class. Normally, one would need a physical magic bag first that functions as the space for inventory. But seeing how it is too late for him to backtrack, he honestly tells her that he is using storage magic, though she is still skeptical as she claims she has never heard of such a skill. Regardless, she puts on a welcoming face and asks for his adventurer's identification card, though is once again shocked when Jade sheepishly confesses that he does not own one yet. He explains that he has just started out as an adventurer and thought that he should prepare himself first to get stronger before going for the Adventurers Guild's registration exam, to which the guild staff member points out that he should have nothing to be insecure about, as a person who is able to take down a rush boar all by himself is sure to pass such exams with ease. At this, Jade is unable to find any other excuses without giving away his secret, the usage and even existence of his self-made magic tools, so they end up in a brief moment of awkward silence before the staff member decides to relent and agrees to buy the boar carcass from him. Even so, she expresses disappointment in his choosing not to register as an adventurer, though he knows that he is unable to since he lacks any offensive or defensive skills outside of his magic tools. But as he laments about this in his mind, he is suddenly struck with an idea and decides to take the guild registration exams after all, much to the staff members' excitement. Thrilled by his change of mind, she finally introduces herself as the receptionist of the guild called Sylvia and leads him back into the main building of the guild. However, her attitude soon changes when she reads over his filled-in application and asks to confirm if his job is indeed a mere novice. When he confirms it honestly with zero hesitation, she shuts him down and tells him that it is impossible for a novice to clear the registration exams. Already expecting this response, Jade continues to insist that there is an examination method that allows monster subjugation to be the test as long as he is being accompanied by an examiner. Although hesitant, Sylvia agrees to give him the chance and leaves temporarily to inform the examiner. A while later, a giant around 5 times Jade's size approaches him and asks him if he is the novice who wishes to attempt the guild's registration exam, to which he confirms nervously. Predictably, the giant warrior who is acting as his examiner and introduces himself as Ramon underestimates Jade's skills, especially due to his small and scrawny appearance. Even as Ramon taunts Jade a little bit, the latter is not fazed by his words and confidently claims with a smile that he will definitely pass the exam. Still not taking him seriously, Ramon tells him that he can choose the destination and expects that he will choose an area with weaker monsters, to which Jade simply accepts the advantage and starts leading him deep into the forest. As they make their way deeper and deeper, Ramon calls Jade out on how he is proceeding through the dangerous woods in quite a confident manner, to which the latter confirms that he is able to sense the whereabouts of possible opponents and creatures. Ramon scoffs at his claim, pointing out that it is unlikely he can use tracking magic since his job is not a seeker. At this, Jade simply ignores his words and soon senses where his targeted monster is, leading Ramon further. However, when the examiner finally notices the monster ahead of them, he frantically tells Jade that they should return since the monster is an incredibly strong beast called an earthquake. Due to its heavy body with exceptional muscles, the earthquake is able to create trembles throughout the ground whenever it takes a step, causing a major disadvantage for its opponents on the battlefield. In addition to that, its overwhelming strength is well known to have annihilated countless tanks, earning its terrifying reputation against warrior jobs. Nonetheless, he is still weak enough to be susceptible to Jade's change skill, so he is confident that he can still take it down. Meanwhile, Ramon is panicking as he scolds him for trying to challenge such a terrifying monster, even if he already knows what it is capable of beforehand. As he insists that they should escape before they are noticed, Jade notes that Ramon is wrong in the sense that the earthquake has actually already noticed their presence. But since it knows that it can simply terminate their lives anytime it wants due to the overwhelming difference in strength, it is ignoring them for the time being. While Ramon continues to panic over their situation, Jade simply ignores his worries and asks if he can use his magic tool to face the earthquake for the examination. Too fearful for his life to care, he gives him the green light, and Jade immediately uses it like before, and the Mana Stone immediately changes places with the earthquakes, causing it to immediately fall down to the ground, defeated. This result confuses Ramon heavily, and as he questions what Jade did, the latter simply explains how his magic tool works, though the former is still unable to wrap his head around it as he notes that he did not even know such a crazy magic tool existed. As Ramon takes some time to process his thoughts, it is quickly explained that unlike with the boar, Jade does not need to finish it off manually as the disparity in power is much larger between an earthquake and a slime compared to a rush boar and a slime. Hence, all he needs to do is wait a few more minutes for the earthquake to lose its life on its own. His plan is almost thwarted by Ramon, who assumes that they should take the opportunity of the earthquake's weakness and tells Jade that he can finish it off for them. Luckily, Jade manages to dissuade the examiner from doing so, pointing out that it would not count as his victory for the exam if he did not deal with the monster all by himself. In reality, it is actually because he would not have been able to earn the skill points from the monster's defeat if Ramon had interfered. Once he finally gains the skill points, signaling that the earthquake is officially deceased, he decides to upgrade his inventory space once more and store the monster's carcass inside. Once again, Ramon is confused by the usage of storage magic, but decides against questioning and finally believes in Jade's skills, promising the latter that he will pass honorably. Later, as they head back to the guild, they are welcomed by Sylvia, who asks about the outcome of the exam. At this, Ramon enthusiastically confirms Jade's skills and recommends that they should immediately rank him up to rank B, much to Sylvia's surprise. But since she knows how Ramon is and that he is not one to joke around, she decides to bring the guildmaster to ultimately make the decision. While Ramon looks proud of this turnabout, Jade feels that they are overreacting since he is simply a newbie adventurer. However, much to his surprise, the guildmaster does end up coming out to meet the pair as per Sylvia's request and understandably expresses disbelief at Ramon's insistence on giving a novice a B rank. Even so, Ramon sticks to his words and passionately backs up Jade's capabilities, even going so far as to recount the situation that happened during the exam. The guildmaster still expresses skepticism about Jade's ability to single-handedly take down an earthquake, especially as a novice, to which Ramon reassures him that they have come back with evidence since Jade has stored the earthquake's carcass in his inventory. With Sylvia also confirming that Jade is able to use storage magic, the guildmaster allows them to show him the evidence. Once they relocate to a more confined but wide area in the guild's dismantling facility, Jade proceeds to take the earthquake's carcass out, much to the shock of both Sylvia and the guildmaster, as well as Ramon's proud expression. As Jade also shows them the mana stone harvested from the earthquake, Sylvia expresses how she was initially baffled but intrigued by the cracked mana stone found within the rush boar carcass, and that she finally understands what happened to it due to Jade's change skill. Finally understanding Jade's capabilities and specific strategy using change, the guildmaster decides to verify Ramon's recommendation and agrees to pass the former as well as grant him maximum incentives, much to both Jade and Ramon's relief. A while later, Jade receives his adventurer's plate that shows he is officially registered as an adventurer part of the guild. Unfortunately, in spite of their initial plan to adhere to Ramon's recommendation and upgrade him to rank B straight away, they decide that they still need to include the number of contributions made to the guild overall as a contributing factor. Thus, in the range of ranks G to S, they are only able to upgrade him to rank E. However, Sylvia also reveals that they made him a 3-star hunter to compensate for it, which essentially means that he is still permitted to take commissions above his rank equivalent to the number of stars he has. In this sense, he can still accept B rank commissions, showing that he is still considered a B rank despite what it says officially. He is appreciative of their efforts to support him, though Sylvia tells him that there is still some more good news. Other than his rank, they have finished calculating the total amount he is receiving in payment in exchange for the material and resources he brought in earlier that day, which is 410,000 pars. Note, pars is the currency in their world. Extremely surprised, but satisfied by the amount of money he has already accumulated on his first day of using magic tools, he stores them in his inventory and thanks Sylvia once again for their help. As he leaves the guild, he realizes that the sun is already setting and decides to hunt a few more slimes before heading back home for the day and carving some more magic tools until he falls asleep. The next day, Jade is out on a cliff overlooking the forest below while he thinks about using a new kind of strategy he has prepared to be more efficient in his grind for skill points. After upgrading his search skill 3 more times, he is able to expand his search range and find the monsters on his target list. Making his way back down, he stops in an area that overlaps between the 3 different monster species he wants to take down, and successfully does so with change, retrieving the mana stones of 2 rush boars, 15 giant hornets, and 6 subterranean mole monsters called brutal moles. After retrieving the mana stones, he then proceeds to naturally summon a horde of phantoms, which are wolf monsters without physical bodies. Due to this, they are a formidable foe since it is immune to physical attacks and is able to absorb as well as convert most magic attacks. However, their lack of a physical body is more of an advantage for Jade, as it is instantly over if he uses change on them. With the right amount of magic tools at his disposal, he successfully harvests all of their mana stone and makes them instantly disintegrate. This is a great result for him, especially since the mana stone of a phantom, called the Phantom Core, is an extremely high quality and rare item that is able to replenish a person's mana. Once he puts them in storage, he recounts what he did exactly to summon the phantom seemingly out of nowhere. Essentially, he created a magic calamity by using change on many different types of monsters in one's surroundings at the same time, during which the magic being absorbed in the atmosphere will end up creating a completely different monster as a side effect. With this strategy, Jade is able to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, and he finally earns enough skill points to invest in his foundational skills like physical enhancement and martial arts. It is then explained that while physical enhancement is a passive skill that will increase his physical attributes every time he decides to upgrade it, martial arts is an active skill that helps him use hand-to-hand combat as well as combat skills against an opponent. Using up all of his skill points, he decides to upgrade physical enhancement 7 times and martial arts 6 times respectively. Once he does, he decides to test out his new skills and kicks a nearby large boulder lightly, though it ends up flying far away from the impact of this small kick of his. Of course, Jade is understandably shocked by this sudden increase in his strength, and he originally wanted his improvements to be slower and more gradual. Nonetheless, he decides to test them out on a proper enemy strong enough to take him on, and luckily for him, he comes across a monkey monster called a Shadow Wrestler. Advanced Monkey versus Advanced Monkey. Recalling from his knowledge, the Shadow Wrestler is the same species as the Earthquake, though it is deemed to be much inferior in terms of strength, as they have a high attack power but have obvious weaknesses. As the Shadow Wrestler jumps down from its tree and approaches Jade face to face, the latter decides to challenge himself and attempt to defeat it without using change. Once the battle starts and the Shadow Wrestler tries to attack first, Jade easily dodges its attacks but still acknowledges its high damage output. Even so, he quickly recognizes its attack pattern and is able to consistently dodge or block it with his own attack move. Eventually, he ends up dragging the Shadow Wrestler along the ground and throwing it headfirst into a large rock nearby, effectively defeating it with just his physical skills and gaining even more skill points. As he proceeds to put it away in his storage, he cannot help but feel a sense of pride at how strong he is getting and starts to make his way back home. However, as he passes by the forest on the way back, he notices a group of suspicious characters entering it while carrying an unconscious young woman on one of their backs, making him suspect that a kidnapping is taking place. Hiding nearby, he overhears that the group of men intend to sell the woman on the black market, and now knowing that, Jade knows that he cannot just let them get away with it. Even though he lacks experience in PvP fights, he decides to try his luck and prepares himself by unlocking a new useful skill under the category of Assassination Arts. Dashing through the forest, Jade eventually catches up with the group of bandits and decides to take a sneaky approach first, using his new assassination arts skill called Shikuchi and knocking one of them out without the others noticing. As he returns to his hiding spot, the other two bandits of the group finally notice that their companion has been knocked out cold and realize that someone is trying to take them down. During this moment, Jade also finds out that he is able to obtain skill points by defeating bandits in specifically special ways that would prevent them from conducting any more evil deeds as long as they are not deceased. As the other two bandits raise their guards, Jade is able to officially deem them as bandits and decides not to hold back anymore, revealing himself to them while wielding his knife. At first glance, the bandits underestimate him immediately due to his small and skinny stature, even mistaking him for a kid. Although they are temporarily caught off guard by his insisting that he is an adult and a novice, one of them still decides to attack first, wanting to sell him on the black market as well. Using their disregard toward him as an advantage, Jade manages to quickly take the first bandit down by throwing a monostone at him unpredictably, then proceeds to use his pure physical strength to instantly knock out the other. Although he is still not used to how abnormally strong his physical strength is currently, he decides to check on the hostage victim. While she is still unconscious, he unties her from her binds and wonders what to do as he cannot simply leave her alone to wander around, but he is also unable to cast a healing spell on her for the time being due to a lack of skill points. Just as he looks up and tries to figure out his next step, he is surprised to spot two power eagles flying in the sky just above him. When he sees them flying in his direction, he takes this chance to cast Change onto them and obtains their mana stones as well as some additional skill points to acquire the healing skill. Once he does so, he heals the girl, and she almost immediately wakes up after. She is momentarily confused and shocked at the current situation, but then quickly assumes that Jade is her savior. At this, he asks if it means she remembers she was being abducted before getting knocked out, to which she sheepishly admits that it was mostly because she fell for a scam. She explains that she is a struggling artist who has not been able to gain any recognition or sales as of late. One of the bandits took advantage of her gullibility and desperation because of this, lying that he had a profitable gig for her. The life of a starving artist truly is pitiable. Impulsively, she followed after him to accept the offer, and when they arrived at a shady alley, he finally revealed his true intentions to sell her off and promptly knocked her out right after. At this, Jade sympathizes with her but also expresses intrigue at her job, so he asks what she specializes in. When she reveals that she's actually a sculptor, Jade realizes that her skill set would be very useful for him and suddenly asks if she's interested in working for him, taking her aback. Understandably confused by Jade's offer, the young woman asks him to be more specific, to which he explains that he needs a lot of magic tools hand-carved at the ready. At first, she's excited by the idea that one can even create magic tools simply by carving accurate symbols onto stones even if one is not a crafter, though she quickly gets discouraged by the fact that she is not familiar with any magic symbols. At this, Jade reassures her that he already has some samples for her to refer to and use, and that he can easily redraw most of them as well from memory. Even so, she is still insecure about her skills for the job, admitting that it is a gracious job offer for her, but asking if it is better for him to leave it to a specialist instead. Jade immediately explains that rather than a specialist, he much prefers an artist like her instead, since the type of tools he needs the most can only be mass-produced by hand, and delving more into the details of it all. Finally convinced, the artist decides to enthusiastically accept his job offer as a token of appreciation for saving her life. As they shake hands and finally formally introduce themselves to one another, she is revealed to be called Gina, and they smile at each other as they look forward to working together as soon as possible. While Jade starts cleaning up the scene and putting away the knocked-out bandits into his storage, he asks if he can the exact rate of her salary after he finishes trading in the goods he had hunted that day, to which she assures him that she is all right, as long as he guarantees it can cover the minimum standard of living for her. Once they sort that detail out, there is only one bandit left for him to deal with, which is the first one he had defeated as well as the same one who tricked Gina in the first place. Instead of putting him away in storage, he has another idea and asks Gina to try her skills out on one magic tool he needs at the moment, which he intends to use on the remaining bandit to figure out the location of other possible cooperating bandits. Once he hands her a mana stone and a sample drawing of a magic symbol, Gina proceeds to take out her own set of tools from her magic bag and even a workbench as well as a mini table. After only 3 minutes, she finishes the carving, much to Jade's surprise. In addition to that, he finds that the carving is absolutely perfect and accurate to the sample image he drew, making him even more shocked at how she was struggling as an artist in the first place. As he thanks her for her help, he also instructs her to keep her distance from him and the bandit for the time being, using the excuse that the stone may backfire and become dangerous if the activation from her carving fails. In reality, he is confident that her magic tool will work perfectly, and he actually does not want her to watch the process of him inserting the mana stone into the bandit's body, as it is quite a gruesome process that involves some direct cutting and sewing of the skin. It is then explained more in depth that the exact effect of the mana stone he has inserted into the bandit's body is that it will place a curse on the person, preventing them from conducting evil deeds. Additionally worried that there may be a larger organization behind such human trafficking activities, he ultimately decides to leave behind the one bandit as living bait with the magic tool within him. Grateful for Gina's quickness with the carving, he goes over to her and confirms that her magic tool worked perfectly and praises her for a job well done. And with that, they go slime hunting for a bit as per his request, before finally arriving back at the guild. At the guild reception table, Jade is filling out a transaction form when he is greeted by Ramon, who asks how much he has made from the day's hunted goods. Of course, he is understandably taken aback when Jade reveals he has made a whopping amount of 4 million pars in just that day alone. He is even more shocked when Jade tells him the majority of the profit is from selling off the 15 phantom cores he got, as Ramon notes that phantoms are not only extremely rare to come by, but they are very hard to defeat as well. Now dejected at his own earnings, Ramon decides to excuse himself early from the conversation and leaves. At that moment, Gina asks how many months Jade has been spending just gathering up all the material to sell off, so when he tells her honestly that he gathered them all in a single day, Gina is just as shocked and dejected as Ramon, calculating how she would be elated from just getting 10% of the amount he made. As she is dazed out and Jade wonders what to respond with, another guild faculty member called Meika meets back up with them to discuss the bandits' crisis further due to being in charge of such matters. Although Meika informs them that they could not find any stolen goods nor incriminating evidence from the bandits' equipment and magic bag, she still lets them review the contents found, to which Gina comes back into reality and notices that her favorite hat is among them. Once Gina regains and wears her hat, Meika proceeds to show them a map of the surrounding areas and reconfirm where Jade first stumbled across the bandits. He also adds that with the help of the tracking mana stone implanted into the leftover bandit, he can see that the latter has not moved from his last spot, presuming that he is still unconscious. At this, Meika praises his good work and even recalls his recent achievements like defeating the earthquake with a single finger during his exam with Ramon. Regardless, she informs them that the guild will be requesting an adventurer who specifically excels in tracking to take over the case, though promises to update him on the exact award for his contribution once they figure out the identities of the bandits. Later that evening, Jade brings Gina back to the inn and rents 2 additional rooms for the 2 of them, one as a bedroom for Gina and another as a workshop. In the workshop, Gina is already excited to get to work, and though he asks to confirm if she is really sure about finishing all 60 mana stones he needs in one night, she reassures him that she is able to make quick work of it, claiming she can finish it in around 3 hours, much to Jade's admiration. Once he reminds her of the instructions regarding the symbol carvings, he turns to leave for the night when Gina suddenly calls out to him and thanks him once again for saving her life, ending their day on a sweet note. The following morning, Jade drops by the workshop and is endeared to see Gina has fallen asleep there instead of in her own bedroom. Nonetheless, he goes on to inspect the magic tools she has made and is impressed to see that all of them are of equally the same high quality. Packing them into his bag, he thanks her mentally and leaves her behind to rest. Later outside on the hunting grounds, he mentally calculates that he has a total of 69 magic tools for change and one additional magic tool for area menace. 69 tools? Nice. Originally, Area Menace is a tool that is quite rare and not circulated, though using it in combination with Change is an easy way for him to summon phantoms and gather skill points more efficiently. However, at that moment, he realizes that he has forgotten to prepare the second specific type of tool needed for the combination, which is a more faulty kind of change tool. At this realization, he decides that he must forego his original plan and prepare such tools later that day when he returns. As he continues to make his way through the woods, he eventually comes across a large lake where he is able to sense a magic reaction similar to rush boars. As he reviews it, something suddenly disturbs the peace and jumps out of the water, piercing itself through a power eagle flying high above in the sky. Jade recognizes it to be a divine arrow, which is an extremely rare creature that he immediately takes the chance to retrieve. As he puts away the deceased power eagle into his storage, he proceeds to inspect the divine arrow and concludes that he must properly process it into a weapon in order to use it in its peak form. However, before he decides to put it away as well, he senses another monster nearby and decides to quickly unlock a new slash skill called Crescent Blade. Approaching the nearby monster, which turns out to be an oblivious shadow wrestler, he proceeds to wield the divine arrow as a makeshift weapon and use the skill Crescent Blade on the monster, which not only ends up slashing the shadow wrestler effortlessly into pieces, but also chopping off a few miles worth of trees in the forest. Although Jade was already expecting the sharpness and power of the divine arrow, he was still quite shocked at how it dealt such major damage. Ultimately, he still decides that using its corpse is less than ideal as a weapon, and plans to process it into a proper sword, already thinking about asking the guild for a blacksmith's recommendation. Before that though, he decides to make use of his remaining free time to make the faulty version of the change magic tool by himself right then and there, rather than go back into town and ask Gina to do it for him. After some time, he finally finishes it, though he acknowledges it looks quite lackluster in comparison to Gina's carvings at that point. Nonetheless, all that matters is that it works and proceeds to set up the trap. Once he is done, he goes up to hide in a tree nearby, and soon enough, his setup successfully attracts a large variety of monsters to the area, which explains why the Area Menace tool is banned from circulation. Once he settles in on the site, he proceeds to take the next step and use the faulty Change tool on the surrounding monsters. Thankfully, it works and summons a large group of phantoms onto the area, though they stand no chance against Jade, who already has a bunch of change tools at the ready and harvests all of their phantom cores as well as skill points. As Jade looks over his haul for the day and finishes up enhancing his foundational skills, he also decides to enhance his martial arts skills with the remaining skill points he has, and proceeds to acquire a new special skill called the Eye of X, which gives him the ability to get complete insight on the target's innards, and with that, the knowledge of pressure points and weak positions within a target. With this, he is able to utilize it by attacking the target on such points and briefly immobilizing them to get the upper hand in combat. In addition to that, he can also pair the skill with Search, expanding on its potential even more. Excited over this, he decides to test out the Eye of X before going home for the day. Fortunately for him, he detects a rush boar nearby and proceeds to use the new skill on it. Just like the explanation, it gives him accurate information on where its pressure points are, and he proceeds to kick its one leg to make it lose balance. As it falls to the ground afterward, immobilized, Jade takes advantage of this opening and slashes down onto it with Crescent Blade, finishing it off immediately. Proud of his achievements, he decides it is time to wrap up for the day, though not before harvesting the mana stones from the boar manually since he did not use Change. Later, back at the guild, Jade trades in the monster carcasses, though Sylvia notices that he has used a different skill from Change since the boar is visibly cut up and the mana stone was clearly manually harvested. At this, Jade sheepishly explains that he has acquired a new skill that helps him see the weak points of the targets, which Sylvia simply accepts as another bizarre and unbelievable fact from him. On that topic, she asks if he's going to sell them some more phantom cores so casually once again, to which he denies and defends that the previous time was just a very lucky day for him. The decision behind this lie was because of the overreaction given the last time he sold the phantom cores to Sylvia, so he decides to hold back for the time being for her sanity's sake, as well as not to arouse suspicion. Other than that, he brings the discovery of the divine arrow, to which Sylvia notes that though it is not as rare as phantoms, it is still a legendary fish. He reveals that he wants to process it into a weapon and asks for her recommendation on a blacksmith in town, to which she hesitantly confirms that there is only one who is good in his craft but is infamous for his bad personality. Regardless, Jade decides to take up the recommendation and goes to visit the blacksmith, who looks to be quite the rough and gruff fellow. Although the blacksmith wonders how a child like Jade was able to retrieve such good material, he accepts the job of processing it into a proper weapon. At this, Jade initially thinks nothing of the bad rumors surrounding the blacksmith, instead getting a good impression of him as he seems easy enough to talk to. However, he is proven to have been too early to judge, as once he asks when he can come by to retrieve it, the blacksmith simply tells him that he can take it right at that moment at twice the market price. This answer confuses Jade immensely as he wonders why he is paying for the weapon when he is the one who provided the material in the first place. At this, the blacksmith realizes their miscommunication, and suddenly, his expression turns dark. In an offended tone, he coldly taunts Jade for having the audacity to buy a sword created by someone like him, telling him that he would never sell such a great weapon to a child like Jade. As Jade is taken aback by this sudden change of attitude, the blacksmith goes on to explain that he is willing to pay twice the market price for the material itself, but he plans to sell the sword to someone else who he believes actually has the skills to wield it. As Jade is rendered speechless with rage from how he is being belittled, the blacksmith tells him to be grateful for how much he is willing to pay for the material and that he should not be satisfied. Of course, Jade is even more angered by this comment, as the money itself does not matter to him at all. After all, he has made much more profit just by selling off the phantom cores than selling the divine arrow at twice the market price. What he desires is the high-quality weapon itself. Doing his best to maintain his composure and keep his rage within, he asks the blacksmith if the latter will sell the sword to him as long as he is able to prove that he is not just some weak, no-named boy. Caught off guard by Jade's attempt to negotiate, the blacksmith still tries to intimidate him, asking if the former will still accept the challenge even with the chance of being injured to the point of no return, especially since he will be choosing the opponent for him. With a confident smile, Jade accepts the conditions of the agreement, and with that, the blacksmith tells him to return in 7 days again. As Jade leaves the blacksmith's workshop, he is determined to grow his skills within those 7 days and show how much a novice like him can be strong as well. And this is how this segment of the manga ends. Unfortunately, there aren't enough chapters to continue, but we declare to do so as soon as more chapters are released. So if you're looking for another fascinating tale, check our best recommendation right here.